weren't actually moving.
I knew the director needed a fireball chasing our hero, Lawrence Fishburne, down the rotating set. It's kind of a unique set. It's very hard to walk in that set, incidentally. He did well running down because of the equilibrium. It really messes with you. So he practiced it. It's not easy. What was intended was a flame bar, a flame to chase him and get close to him. Well, doing it for real, everybody tends to take a long focal length lens and compress the action. When I saw the rotating set, I suggested that if we could rotate it faster, we can shoot an actual flame ball down in a second pass and shoot it at a slower rate of frame rate, with the tunnel rotating twice as fast, 8 RPM, instead of 4 RPM when he was running. Then the two should just marry up real easily. And we got lucky, and they did. Neil Corbold, Physical Effects, who has a hydraulic system rotating that massive set, and Mark Weingartner could time the set. So we actually had a rotation tachometer on the set.
There was also an awful lot of wire and rig work done to actually remove things from set that Paul didn't want in. A lot of the zero-gravity stunts involved quite large armatures moving things through shot that we then digitally removed. There were also a fair number of shots where props were created digitally and put into scenes to make it appear as if they're in zero gravity. The two shots that stand out are the first shot on the event horizon inside the main corridor, where there's a large broken water bottle floating around and some other objects. If you look closely, there's a CG book that floats through shots that actually has a picture of Paul Anderson on the front cover, which was his little Hitchcock cameo. The other sequences that I think worked particularly well for computer-generated props were the glove sequence where Miller is first exploring in the event horizon. The main effects work that we had planned right from the start were a lot of the big spaceship shots and also the liquid coolant. I would think in all there were probably about 100 people involved in the different facilities we were using. Certainly for Computer Film Company and the Cine site, while they were working on it, during the post-production period, it was the biggest shows that they were doing. Often they had people on set when we were shooting elements or we were shooting principal photography that they were then going to add things to. There were core team working right from the start, because we knew that the effects work we were doing was so complicated that unless we actually had the artists involved right from the pre-production, the planning stage, then it would be much more difficult to put together. And it's a credit as much to those companies that the work looks as good as it does.
You let me burn!
Well, the technique is a flamethrower device, and to make it reach the length of the tunnel, there was difficulty to get it go down through the tunnel because the fire will chase the air, the oxygen. It wants oxygen to burn. So that set, if you noticed, as it was rotating, had holes in it and little fans and fins. So there's a lot of oxygen. So it's sitting there ready like a dragon. When the flame comes and catches it, it joins it and comes as a thrust. So we shoot it in slow motion at the frame rate described for the man running. When we used the long lens and tightened his action down, the set was rotating at 4 RPM, and we photographed the set now with the flame at 12 RPM and 3 times the amount of film. So that again, when you laid them down in registration, it would fit the set. We could also place the fire as close to him as we wanted, what was needed for the film, to make it look as though it gained on him, because we could do the different speeds. It's just a little trick. After the fireball chases him down the tunnel, he dives through and saves the day. Ha-ha. No, he doesn't. The flame comes through the door. We don't know what's happening yet. And it takes on the shape of a man. We call him the Burning Man in this film. And he's quite a character. He has to burn. So we haven't developed him totally. We have all the pieces ready to put together. This piece here, the feet, we call those the crispy feet. This is the crispy feet walk through this tank of water. In the scene, in the set, you'll notice there was some water behind. For some reason, the crispy man strikes Lawrence, knocks him into the water, and then he walks in afterwards. So to show that he's in the water, we have a cut on his feet. And again, the director Paul and I talked and thought it was cool. Paul wanted him to walk in there, and he gave us the okay to try and have him burning, and it required the robot. So we have a robot here in motion control with the camera that's following him, and we've got him walking towards the camera, as though he's the real man. So we've shot actually 7 or 8 elements here. We've got him walking with steam coming out of his legs. We've got him walking crispy. We've got him walking with black legs on flame. We've got him walking in and out of the water in different frame rates. Every one of those, again, come on top of each other. So selectively, we'll have to edit and select certain flames. Then when we put it together, we'll have to hide our flaws by maybe using some computer-generated flames or some other pieces. But the end result, we hope, is him walking in the water. It's been accepted. The timing and the movement is nice. But we hope to see into the water because he's the burning man. He's going to burn everywhere. So he's going to burn underwater.
I think the single shot that stands out as being the most complicated and also one of the most effective is what we call the daylight station pullback, which is Sam Neill opening the shutters at his, on his apartment, and then the camera pulling back through this enormous space station gantry work and revealing the Earth below. And that was an incredibly complicated shot to plan and to actually execute. And that was really the first shot that we did and the last shot that was actually delivered. And I think even looking at it now, there are still 1 or 2 things that we'd like to go back and continue working on. The reason it was so complicated is that we had to build a number of different scales of the same miniature. And it's a huge credit to David Sharp that he was able to do this and then replicate the camera move through it all. David Sharp and David Stewart, who was the motion control cameraman, worked on planning out exactly how the move was going to work. And with Richard, managed to pre-visualize it in such a way that after we'd shot the individual elements and turned them over, CineSight were able to very quickly put it together and make sure that it worked, and then actually start work on the shot towards final. Certainly when we looked at even the dailies, it was a very disorienting piece of work to look at. And it was so complex that I think even with Richard explaining how it was going to work, no one actually believed him that it would work. And it's quite amazing now how effective it is in the film.
What you try to do is blend all of your shots in the best you can with the assets that you have at hand so that it becomes a continuum of experience. We've got, I can't really focus on what it is because there's so much where we've got so many things to do. We are part, really, the visual effects. I wouldn't call this a visual effects film. It's just film. It's part of the filmmaking that we're going to require visual effects. It's probably one of the best examples to date of a film that couldn't be done without the visuals because nobody has a stage large enough to build the 800-foot spaceship in. So we have to trick the audience when we can. And Paul's real clever, and he has a cut or two. We established that the scope and the size of the ship, and hopefully it'll go past and no one will think that it was done in visuals.
In terms of which sequence I'm most proud of, the opening shot of the Event Horizon when the camera rakes in across it and the sunlight filters through the gantry work, I think visually is one of the best shots. In fact, though, I think the most impressive work is a lot of the effects shots that perhaps the audience wouldn't notice or wouldn't be sure whether it was shot for real or CG. I particularly like a very short sequence when Miller is first exploring the Event Horizon and is startled by the CG glove. I think a lot of the lighting in that, which was done in CG, works very, very well. And likewise, when they're first in the main corridor, and there's a camera shot with the water bottle that's been shattered and there are little bits of ice hanging in the air and the torchlight that comes up through that. Those are the kind of details, I think, that really make a huge difference into how well the computer-generated objects are integrated into live action.
This place is a tomb.